like it sounds.
Just like it's
All right. Thanks everybody for being here. I know we got a lot to cover, but really excited about. Want to start off by talking about a proposal that ourselves and many of our awesome community partners are working on together to help what I really consider to be the greatest asset of our community, which is the kids who live here and will grow up here and will continue to make this a great community. And how do we invest in them through education and certainly focus on their health, their mental health, and their well-being. And I think that's a principal role of the city and all of us as a community. So I've got a couple folks here that I'd like to be able to have a chance to speak about their role in that. Obviously, Allison Hill is here for CEO of Lifeview Group, and Dr. Joseph Clawitter, the Director of Pediatrics at Community Health Northwest Florida. So to give you a little quick background, and then I'd love to have them speak, is this is an idea that has been bounced around for a few months now. We, again, looking at opportunities on how we can make this a better community for our children. We started to figure out this project that's going to be built around a children's resource center. And what that would mean is an all-hands effort, both the City of Pensacola, with Lifeview, with Community Health, and support from Escambia County, is to be able to put a children's resource center, the first of its kind in our community. This is something that it would not be unprecedented within the state, but certainly is unprecedented within the region. And it would focus on services that would be administered by the city, by Community Health, and we approached Allison and Lifeview and said, with this idea, and the amazing community partners they already are with us in the city and with so many others, certainly we're willing to entertain the conversation where we could really have a wraparound children's services model here, which would include pediatric, and I'll let them speak to Community Health, let the doctor speak on some of those details, but pediatrics, as well as some of the recreational elements, the classrooms, computer labs, and hopefully some partnership, of course, with Lifeview on the mental health aspect, and the Escambia Children's Trust. And so it's about a $3.5 million proposal that we will be bringing forward to Escambia Children's Trust to help fund this project, which includes the acquisition of the building as well as some operational expenses through the first few years. And I'm very, very excited about this. Obviously, this is something that the trust has to consider and the subcommittees have to consider. We certainly understand and respect that. But I really feel like we as a community, not just the city, but the city, the county, and amazing partners like the folks behind us right here, that we can really do something great here. And we've said for 6 months that we can't say that education, and we can't say the kids aren't our job. That we have 800 employees and we've got a $260 million budget, and that may not include the school district, or it may not include some of the other amenities, but what we do to help the children of Pensacola, Florida is our job. It's all our job. And I really, really appreciate and am very grateful for Lifeview, for Community Health, for the county, that we have an aligned vision in that respect, and really, really excited to see this move forward. So happy to take any of your questions after I let the folks behind me speak. So I'll pass it off to Allison Hill.
Thank you. So we're excited to be included in this partnership. When the city approached us with this initiative, with this vision, it has kind of grown over time into something that I think will make a real impact in the community where we are located for the residents who live in our neighborhood. Lakeview fulfills our mission of helping people throughout life's journey by providing mental health and addiction services. Last year we served about 24,000 individuals. 6,000 of those were children. Many times it's co-occurring things that happen in a home, need for physical health care, access to daycare, to programs like the city offers that make it more difficult for people to engage in treatment. So the concept, the thought of having all these services co-located is very exciting, and I feel an opportunity for us to to partner in ways that bring services differently than we've seen in the past. So we're glad to be invited to this conversation and excited to see where this goes. So thanks for having us today.
So community health has always been very excited to work with different communities in our area, specifically CA Weiss with the Ambassador Program, and now at Pine Forest High School, where we now have a pediatrician and are working on an Ambassador Program there also. When we were approached with this project, we were very excited to be able to still offer health care in this community to the children. As the mayor alluded to, the children are very important, one of our most vulnerable populations. And so with community health's mission always being that we provide quality health care regardless of, moving forward with this project will only enhance our presence in the community and allow us to fully take care of all of these children. So thank you.
Thank you both. So just happy to take any questions, and I'm sure they would be happy to take any questions as well. But to give you some details, this would be the purchase of this facility, which includes a gymnasium. It would include a pediatric center with community health focused again on the health of our children as well, and of course there's other space involved there, classrooms, computer labs, and things like that. We would work out all the details of exactly the square footage allotments, all of those things to be worked out. The first big step is to make sure that we can get this project funded. So that's what you'll see before you, and you'll see in the proposal that obviously will be going in front of the Escambia Children's Trust. So again, a huge thank you to LifeView, to Community Health, to the county, and our staff, Dina and everybody that's at Parks and Rec, Tanya. There's been a lot of hands in to try to get us to this point. And as I said, we'll cross our fingers and see what happens from here. But happy to take any questions on this, and then of course we'll get to the rest of our stuff for the press conference in a little bit. But any questions as far as this goes? Yeah.
So can you break down the total cost of the proposal? You said $3.5 million. Is that the grant, or is that the total cost?
Yeah, both. $3.45 million, I believe, is the total cost. The building, our appraisal of the building is about 2.9, and there'll be about another $500,000 in various operational expenses. The building itself, as proposed now, would be operated by the city. And what I would say is, if you see some of the again, we are not setting precedent in the state of Florida. Other children's trust organizations have funded these exact kind of projects focused on the dollars or to help the children of the community. So that is not new in that respect. We might be a little bit more of an outlier that instead of it being children's trust run, that it would be city run. Obviously, we're open-minded about how that would work. I think one asset that the city brings to this is number one, we certainly have experience running community centers, resource centers similar to this in terms of how they function. But then secondly, we also have the funnel of, we have a lot of children within this community that are within our system, within our database of being able to reach out to them, be it camps, be it after school activities. These are two things that are not foreign to us as the city. So we really do feel like one of the big elements that we would bring as the city running the facility is the ability to maximize its potential, and the fact that we would be able to have, kids in there with programming. And our intent also is, if you look at some of the things that have come through the proposals for Escambia Children's Trust, there's a lot of conversations about needing facilities. I really envision that this facility could also help with compound that as well, is to say, hey, instead of having to fund an entire building, which is a heavy lift, or it might be a nonprofit that's never done it before, now we would have a gymnasium, we'd have a facility that we could certainly partner with folks that are enhancing the lives of children in our city, and most importantly, not just our city. When you see where this is located geographically, it's right on the city-county line. Our expectation is, even though this is a city-run facility, that this is going to be used very much by the children of Escambia County that are, again, just a matter of a couple blocks away. So that's why we really like this location. As Allison mentioned, I think it is in an area of need, and I think we're able to fulfill those needs both at the city and the county level.
Is it 3.45 total grant request, or is this over several years?
I'll have to look at the 500,000. I know the 2.9 it would be now. I don't remember if Dina, maybe you could. Is it all one? Okay. So the idea around the 500,000 was again to help offset operational expenses. And I know community health certainly will figure out what they want to do, and in terms of what their needs would be within the footprint of the facility. And would certainly hand that off to them in terms of their renovations and what their needs are, and be working alongside them to make sure that they've got a facility that they need to be successful.
What are some of the specific services that this facility will provide that, I know you mentioned that there was some 6,000 children already helped in this area. What are some of the things that this facility will provide that that was not provided, that could have been also provided to those 6,000 kids if this facility had already been open, already in full gear?
Well, what I could say is I think just not only with this facility, but just as a whole, one of the biggest issues that we have, whether it be in designated food deserts, whether it be we have parts of our city where less than 50% of the people have access to a vehicle. So what I really see is the synergistic ability for someone to have true wraparound in an area of need in both our city and our county, and be able to go somewhere where they can have, again, improve their well-being, improve their health, improve their education. And as we said, we don't enter into this as the city that, we have all 40 hours, 60 hours of programming already filled. But the way we look at it is we're going to get some of these primary functions that make it so difficult for the underserved in our community to be able to go from one place to another place, to be able to bring those to the neighborhood, not hope the neighborhood comes to these services, I think is the big primary win here. And so it's not so much that these services by themselves don't exist in our community already. It's the fact that we can, at one place, that we can make this happen. And it's one thing to check a box and say, hey, this is something that exists in our community. It's another to get urgent and intentional about making sure that we are proactive in providing those services to the places and to the people that need it the most.
Mayor, I want to talk about metrics, measuring success.
Mm-hmm.
The Children's Trust has a very strict set of criteria for outcomes and metrics on their grant proposals. The community health operation over at CA Weiss has a definite set of metrics. Children who are succeeding at the grade level and moving at their scores, their learning. With this program, how are you going to measure success?
Yeah, so in terms of metrics for specifically community health, certainly I would defer to them on what they see. Really, I took a little bit more of a overarching approach to this and said, what can we put together that we know is of immediate need to our community? And so I think, I'm pretty data driven. I think we're always going to measure how successful, how many children are we interacting with, how many children are coming to community health. If LifeView has some, mental health services or other vendors, that's the beauty of this. This is not limited to just the people that are here at the beginning. If there's value we can provide to the children of this community, that's the amazing thing about having this synergistic space, is we'll be able to provide that. So, of course, we'll want to make sure that we want this to be a place that's in demand. We feel like this is meeting demand, and so we'll measure that. And again, to specific health outcomes, all of that, I would and certainly defer to the doctor on that. But what I'd tell you is, I think we're putting our best foot forward of something that we know is of immense need in this community, and I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I think if this, God willing, if this is able to pass the Children's Trust and be funded, I think number one, the value of it is it's an existing building. This is something that could be put online relatively quickly, given that. But secondly is, I think we'll probably sit here in a couple of years and there'll be some amenities and some things that we can provide to the children of Pensacola and Escambia County that we may not even be thinking of right now. But we need this home base, we need this synergy, we need to be in the areas and in the neighborhoods where the folks who need it the most are.
Follow up. Do you have a specific, Doctor, demographic in mind? I know Rick has been a champion of these census tracts. Low-income neighborhoods have poor health outcomes, poor learning outcomes. Do you have a demographic that you want to go after, or is this sort of a overarching serve the entire community? Whoever walks in, we will treat or help?
So our philosophy at Community Health is we never turn a patient away. And so we have various areas in our community where there's a lot of children that are not receiving the immunizations that are required to keep them healthy. They're not getting well checks. They have chronic conditions that are not being followed up in a timely manner, whether because of transportation or lack of primary care. And so I think the overall theory when we start is going to be all-encompassing for the community. And as we continue to see children be able to provide services, behavioral health and whatever other ancillary services can be brought in to meet the needs that the community has.
A follow-up question, just as far as community health, this is the first time y'all been inside a community center, is that correct?
As far as I believe, yes, sir.
So, but you've done community clinic, pediatrics and clinics inside of the schools. What's been how has that worked? Is that model worked for y'all?
Yes, actually, CA Weiss has been an excellent pilot program. And I believe that there's interest across many other counties in Florida to try to emulate the process that we have there. We have now advanced it to the high school level, and it's a fairly new clinic there, but the idea of putting healthcare in a place that is more accessible to kids and that community, that's really what we strive for.
So they can go to play basketball, and then if a sibling doesn't feel well, they would be able to get treated, or they themselves, before they get on the court.
Correct.
Right.
Does this have any connection to the future of the Fricker Center, or what's going on there?
No. This was, again, something that evolved. Obviously, the Fricker Center, as you know, we've got a $5 million proposal in with HUD, CDBG, infrastructure dollars, and we'll learn maybe a little bit later this month into next month about the future there. But no, this project, and as it evolved and as we started to get our arms around each other here as vital services for, we just started to get some real clarity on the direction to go here. So yeah, this is not, if this proposal passes or doesn't pass, has no direct connection to what happens or doesn't happen at Fricker. But given the fact that, again, for this to be a children-focused 100% facility, that should play no role into what our general community center is. And that's why I really look at it as, a children's resource center. We all kind of have a definition for community center, which is what we know and what we certainly have here in the city. But we hope that this is a resource for many positive things for kids in our community. So yes, they're 8-9 blocks away or so, but this is not to be a replacement of or does not dictate the future one way or the other for Fricker.
I got a question for Allison.
Yeah.
All right. This is the building that y'all have been using. You have a very active campus. Why? It's unusual to give up a building. Why do that?
So we do have an active campus. We don't have any plans to relocate where we are. I don't know if that was really your question, Rick, but I will tell you that. We have about 25 acres right there in the Ian Marino area, and we have a lot of services that go on. We looked at this as an opportunity to do more, because while the building is active and we have meetings and we have some community groups that use the gym, it could be for the greater benefit of the community to co-locate all these services. It really is a challenge for families to come to Lakeview maybe to see their provider and then to go to a different location to see their pediatrician. Right. And then if they're in summer camp to go to a different location. So anything we can do to make it easier for families, that was something that was really exciting to be a part of.
Rick, I'll add too, I think that's part of the intrigue of this. Again, given its exact location, how amazing is it if this is approved that it's right next to to everything that Allison and her team provides, and we all know there's going to be some long-term future of what happens at the old campus of Baptist Hospital. I mean, I think there's a lot of long-term benefit and short-term benefit of its exact location, being in an area of need and having amazing services right there, right in our backyard. I think it really feeds to the long-term potential of this.
Assuming you'll get the grant, and after the grant is used up, what's the plan for the long-term funding of the center?
I think we'll learn a lot through that. We'll learn a lot about the partnership. Obviously, community health will have a portion of the building, and we'll get our arms around expenses. But at the end of the day, the city's invested in this, and if this goes through, we're in it for the long haul. So, we feel like with good partners and 4 or 5 years of runway to start to learn what we need and what we don't. Obviously, we could look at that, but with this grant, we would have the facility. So, what we would really be talking about there at that point is some kind of operational staffing, expenses that I would think in the grand scheme of the size of this project would remain relatively minimal. But we would, of course, keep an eye on that and address that, as needed.
And just a follow on that, the last grant the city got from the Children's Trust, there was obviously some criticism on the council for seeking that from another taxing authority. I guess, do you have any, do you think that's a concern with this?
Well, as I said in the council meeting, if we're shying away from taking money from other taxing authorities and accepting it, we got a long way to go, because we take a lot of tax money from a lot of different sources. The reality is, we certainly, I believe in the mission of the Children's Trust, and those dollars are there to do what? They're there to help children. I feel like with our partners and with the City of Pensacola, we have a great opportunity to do that. I'm very confident in our ability to be able to do that. And we find ourselves in unique positions, again, with the access that we have with children at our existing community centers, our Parks and Rec department. There's so many different things that I feel like, we can only be a part of this and make this even better, and make it more of an asset to our city. So, I don't expect that there'd be, certainly from the city council, I don't expect that there'd be any issue, understanding that. And as I said, we're just talking about HUD CDBG dollars. I mean, those come from somewhere. And my job, I feel like, as the mayor of the City of Pensacola, is to fight for the City of Pensacola to be able to make it as successful as we can make it. So, if people want to delineate where the sources of income are, they certainly have their right. But I'm too busy trying to fight and make this the best city we can make it. We can worry about the sources of those income another time. Anything else? All right. Thank you again, LiveView Community Health, and thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. All right, and we'll get going with our other stuff. All right. So before we get in, I've got a list of things. I want to bring Deputy Chief Kevin Chrisman up to talk about some updates. I know there'll be some questions on the shooting downtown, so wanted you guys to get it from the source. So, Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update on 2 shootings that we had yesterday. Yesterday morning at 3:49 a.m., officers responded to a report of a shooting at Jefferson and Government Streets. There was one adult white male located with severe gunshot wounds who was transported to the hospital. He is expected to survive but has serious injuries. Detectives are actively working this investigation. And anyone with information on this shooting, whether it's information on who did it, or if you happen to have cell phone video or anything like that, please contact Detective Turney, Tourney, at 850-435-1975. Then later yesterday at 8:49 in the evening, officers responded to Sacred Heart for a gunshot victim. Determined that the shooting occurred in the 3200 block of Torres Avenue. A juvenile male was located at Sacred Heart with non-life-threatening injuries, and as a result of that investigation, we have arrested a suspect, Traquan Butler, 21 years of age, and charged him with aggravated battery. That case is also ongoing and active, and there are additional charges pending identification of other suspects. I'll take any questions if you have any on those.
How do you spell that gentleman's name?
Traquan Butler, last name is Butler. First name is Trequan. Yes.
Has Mr. Butler been charged?
Yes, he has been charged. He was arrested last night and arrested either last night or early this morning and transported to the Escambia County Jail charged with aggravated battery.
Deputy Chief, what are the charges?
Aggravated battery and a related firearms charge.
Chief, there's been discussion about the shots fired software, and how would that have impacted this if y'all had that?
That software instantly notifies our dispatch that shots have been fired, where you don't have to wait for the incoming calls. We received several 911 calls in reference to the shots fired in the area of Jefferson and Government that we responded to. What that technology does is it doesn't wait for that physical person to decide, was that a shooting? Did something happen? Do I need to call 911? So it removes that lag time of an incident occurring and a witness or a victim calling 911 into our dispatch center. It gives an almost immediate notification.
Mayor, this is probably more for you, but in these high visibility locations like where the incident occurred, do we have enough surveillance equipment in that area? Would you like to see more? Maybe the deputy chief could use some more to help with his investigations?
Well, look, I don't think you'll ever catch me saying we have too much. And, I think we would take as much surveillance equipment as we could get. I can't speak to details of the investigation in terms of what is or isn't there, particular to this shooting. But look, I'm not just the mayor. I'm a citizen with a family here, and I understand that public safety and especially in these high volume areas are of serious concern. That being said, I've got the utmost confidence in our police department. I know that anything that they can track down, they will, and I fully expect, and I know that the deputy chief, the chief, and all of our PPD fully expect this to come to the best conclusion possible. So, ShotSpotter and that that legislative ask is a big part of that. PPD partnering with the sheriff's department to have that technology, and that's exactly why. Back to having the proper equipment. I think we hear about it all the time. Someone saying, was that fireworks? Was that a shot? As Deputy Chief just said, this is technology that the second that round is fired, we know where to go, and we've identified it accurately. We're not waiting on secondhand information, and so that certainly will be a huge asset to us in situations like this. And also point out, we've had it since carry forward, but our expectations this month that we will have 2 additional CRA officers that will give us 4 in total. The 2 that have already been down in the CRA have done a great job and have been very, very helpful. I know a lot of positive feedback from citizens, from some of our business owners down there. And the primary focus of this since this conversation, since December, was that we have additional coverage and additional security for all when we have, we see our population pulse up in a big way in the nights and the weekends, and that's one of the things that makes Pensacola great. But we also want to make sure that we've got, a concerted effort. So these 2 officers have always, the design has always been to make sure that we had additional folks down there at nights and weekends.
You just mentioned one of our questions that we're adding 2 more police officers in downtown Pensacola. Is that a result of the increase of some of the crime in the area? And also, there's a wish list in the DIB to suggest maybe having a precinct downtown Pensacola. What has become of any beyond just some ideas and some wish list, if you will?
Yeah. No. Answer your first question. No. I think. As I just mentioned, I feel like when you have a downtown that is in demand, that people want to visit, that come from all over, not just the county or the surrounding area, but come from around the region to come enjoy a weekend or enjoy a dinner. We see a city of 55,000 pulse up to a pretty large number, and so the addition of 2 officers was not reactionary to any one incident or any crime statistic more than it was to say, hey, we've had this trial run, this pilot of having 2 CRA officers that we've seen a lot of positive feedback from. Now they're typically on during the day. How do we continue to build on something that's been successful? And so that's what we've done. And that was one of the first things in this administration that we took on during the carry forward was to get those funded. And so the DIB shares the expense with us on with the CRA on the first 2 officers. This is an expense important enough to us at the city that CRA is taking on fully for officers 3 and 4. And as I said, maybe not an exact day, but we had said kind of around the June 15th area, sometime in the very near future. I know that Deputy Chief can probably speak to this better, but I believe the officers that are going to be in those positions have been identified, that have been picked in those positions. We're just worried about, before we were to put them in those positions, make sure we're backfilled everywhere else. So that's where we are right now. Is that fair?
That's correct, Mayor. We've got the officers have been identified. One of those transfers is already in the works and will be completed by the end of the month. It just has to deal with pay cycles and things like that as to when we transfer. But yeah, so those officers, you'll see them out in the street. The 2 that are down working the downtown area in the daytime have been tremendously successful. Like the mayor said, the feedback has been incredibly positive, and we're just looking to expand on that and increase that presence.
So we don't think that that's going to happen this week? It's going to be later in the month when the 2 officers?
It'd be later in the month. Our transfers have to work on pay cycles and things like that, so it'll be completed by the end of the month, at least for one of them for sure, and the other ones to follow very shortly after. Like the mayor said, we've just got to make sure we've got a person to backfill. These are already officers that are in our force, are in patrol. They were identified for this transfer, but we need to make sure that we're not, robbing somebody else and leaving them shorthanded. We want to make sure we've got that spot filled before we make that move, and that is in process right now.
Are there any leads on the downtown shooting that you can share publicly on the suspect or any motivation?
I don't have anything that I can share publicly right now. Motive would be completely speculative at this point. Just if anybody does have information, please call, like I said, Detective Turney, 435-1975, and provide any information that you have. And they've been actively working that since it happened. They're called out in the middle of the night, and they've been working it actively since then on just a little bit of sleep. So they're working hard on that.
And just to add, we have been looking into nothing concrete yet. You mentioned some kind of precinct or substation. Obviously, with the location of headquarters downtown, we feel pretty good about that. If we were to potentially look at some kind of substation or expansion, it would probably be in the northern part of the city. Just from a logistical standpoint, when you're working those beats up in the north, up by the mall, Washington High School, Pensacola State, you have evidence, you got body camera footage that's a pretty long trek to have to make back and forth, and that's 35, 45 minutes, an hour more that those folks could be out on the out in their car and not necessarily having to trek back to the station. So again, nothing concrete on that, but we've had some preliminary kind of exploration on if some kind of abbreviated substation on the north part of the city would make some sense for us. So we're looking into that. More to come. Anything else on this? All right. Thanks. All right. We'll get through some of the other things. I know we have the Zaragoza Street fire March 17th. We had the Tippin Avenue fire on the 26th, and then we had our Mallory Street fire on Friday, June 9th. Just like the previous two, all 3 of these things continue to be under investigation by the Bureau of Fire, Arson, and Explosive Investigations. So again, not much we can share. Chief Craner is here. If you have any specific questions on that, I'll get through the rest of this. The smoke alarm program that I mentioned before, you can call PFD at 850-436-5200 and request a free smoke alarm and installation. So, that's one of our major initiatives, and you'll continue to hear more and more about this. Us getting even more intentional. We already have been. Our fire department does a great job, but continue to be more intentional. I know I've shared with the chief that I want to be more and more intentional what I can do in our role to make sure that we have fire alarms in every house in this city. You saw the welcome sign contest was just big congratulations to Brianna Spence, and a thank you to when you take on a design contest, there's a lot of layers to making that happen. Sometimes the easier way to do it is to let an FDOT or let your folks internally or an architect just design something and to be able to get it done. So I want to give a huge thank you to Public Works, to David, Amy, James, to Scott Salas and Dean Dalrymple, and to Brianna. We self-selected for this complexity because we thought that it was for the greater good of the community, and I'm thrilled about how it turned out. And we have a local designer that will have an impact on what 100,000 people and 100,000 visitors see every day. So, certainly the work was worth it, and a big thank you to everybody involved on that project. Our Operation Brownsville activity update, 273 calls for service. We had 15 arrests, and we had 34 offense reports, 1 aggravated battery, a vehicle burglary, residential burglary, grand theft, and a retail theft. That was for the week of June 4 to June 10. Recycling operations are set to resume today, Monday, June 12th, and the ECUA's recycling facility is accepting mixed recyclables again. I will have a mayor's neighborhood cleanup on June 24th, and that's the Sanders Beach, Bayou Grove, and West Garden District neighborhoods. You should get a postcard in the mail if you're watching out there and you're in one of those neighborhoods, but just if you think you're close, check cityofpensacola.com to check the map, and you can confirm that you're in the cleanup. But that's, again, for June 24th. We'll have another Summit Boulevard lane repurposing feasibility study open house on June 20th. And that's our second one, and it's going to be 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Vickery Resource Center, 2130 Summit Boulevard. We had a big turnout, lots of opinions last time, but that's why we do this, is to make sure that we gauge what the community, what the neighbors want. And so that'll be 6:30 to 7:30 on June 20th. We are aware, I think I've mentioned to you guys, at least in the last 2 press conferences, doing the best we can to get the word out about some of the TSA delays at Pensacola International Airport, considering them replacing some of the baggage screening equipment. Understand, the TSA equipment is not something that's necessarily within the purview of, or the schedule is not necessarily within the purview of Pensacola International Airport. I want to be clear. Obviously, we support it. These are necessary improvements to make sure that everybody is safe. But the construction areas are expected to remain in the TSA checkpoint through the summer. I do know Matt and his team at the airport have done a very good job of being proactive in conversations with TSA and some of the folks over in Jacksonville. It's not ideal. We understand, and that's why I continue to warn people and continue as I told you last week. I am one of those flyers. I'm leaving for Washington D.C. tomorrow morning at 6:30, and I normally would get there an hour and 1 minute before it started. I get it. That's how some people travel, but you can't do that right now. I mean, you really have to heed the 2 hours. And take that seriously. So I just beg everybody out there, if they don't want to have any unmet expectations, to just make sure that you're there as soon as possible. And we'll, of course, continue to update you as we get updates from TSA. Juneteenth closures, of course, as you recall, we've moved Monday, June 19th from a partial holiday to a full holiday. We did about 6 months ago. And the only exceptions to that are Roger Scott Tennis Center in Osceola. So that is Monday, June 19th. That'll be a holiday. And then as normal on a Monday holiday, you'll have your sanitation services come a day later. So with that, I will take any other questions you have.
This might be for the fire chief, but is there any information about the boat collision that occurred this morning on Pensacola Bay?
Yeah, I'll let Chief Craner answer that. Thanks.
Yes, I'll have to look specifically for the time, but there was a boat that was anchored out and took on some waves as the seas got a little rougher and capsized. 3 victims fell into the water, and within 12 minutes they were on Pensacola Fireboat 1, so they're all doing okay. And luckily had on flotation devices, which is pretty key to their successful rescue and doing okay right now.
Okay, so it wasn't a collision then?
It was not a collision, no. Oh, thank you. The call went out at 11:55, and we had an initial fire officer on scene at 12 o'clock, and they were in Fireboat 1 at 12:12, so a very remarkable response time and rescue.
And they're all in good condition, you said?
They're all in good condition, yes. They were treated by Escambia EMS on scene and released, is the information I received.
I assume the boat is still, did it sink or is it still out there? Or?
It was capsized and sinking. I don't have any further information on the status, but we can get that.
Thank you.
Sure.
And a huge thank you. I was able to actually go out with the fireboat. We'd had some preliminary conversations about potentially locating the fireboat at the Days Marina for its increased accessibility, but Station 4, who certainly we've been going through some issues with the building at Station 4, and they've been continued to do amazing work, and that's who's in charge of that boat. And it's honestly, you wouldn't know unless you've been on and seen the effort that it takes to be able to have a fireboat. This is not something that you just have someone show up and has the key to. This is a concerted effort with several firefighters. The ability for us to be able to have that, and they do a great job. So I was able to see how the whole boat operated actually a couple weeks ago. So a huge thank you to them.
Mayor, I want to circle back to the airport. This is in the good problems to have category. A lot of social media chatter this past weekend about parking. People are now having to park across 12th Avenue. They may not have ever done that in the past. Coupled with the TSA delays, a high number of people complaining that they miss flights because of the parking situation and getting through TSA and all that. But you've got an agenda item coming up that talks about increasing parking rates. And that got me thinking about, why would you want to increase parking rates? Is this a revenue thing, or is this about some capital growth plan that would increase parking? I mean, what's the idea behind raising the rates?
Yeah, I mean, look, start at the high level. We have not had any functional expansion of our terminal in about 12, 13 years. We are taking 1 million more passengers a year than we did 12, 13 years ago. So, we have to look at a balanced approach to this. On one hand, look, we have people on a Tuesday parking in grass lots. On the other hand, big reason I'm flying to Washington, D.C. tomorrow is to start fighting for $70 million to get an airport terminal done. Yes, with quality and with growth comes with the ability to be able to generate some revenue. Now, we always look at what the expenses are. We want to make sure that we're being fair in the market. The $2 increase in some lots, the $1 in others, has us right in the middle of the pack of the neighboring airports. We are not the cost or expense leader in that. And I think if you travel around airports around the state of Florida and certainly in the Southeast, I think the $11 is that's been in existence for years. It would be going to 13. I think is still again right in the middle of the pack of what you'd expect when you start going to places like Orlando, where it might be $30 a day or more. 2 different size airports. I understand destinations, but yeah, certainly at the end of the day, we've got to be able to provide some for those surface lots, provide the amenities that it takes to take on 1 million more passengers that we're taking on than we have in the last 12 years. So, we've got to be able to fund those things in some way and be able to provide the amenities that people expect. So there's always that balance of revenue and quality, right? I mean, we've looked at, we've gotten our baggage claim, modernized. We've gotten our escalator modernized. We're working on trying to make those improvements to the existing terminal. So when the new terminal comes in, that we have a holistic, we don't have an old terminal and a new, that we really put our best foot forward. So that takes dollars, and so we don't look. No one has ever been in my position and said I enjoy raising the parking rate. No one's ever said that. I can guarantee. I haven't looked it up, but no one's ever said that. But it doesn't mean it's not necessary. And we've got to be able to generate revenue to provide the amenity and the quality of service that people expect when they come to the airport. So that's the balance we try to strike.
I know one of the things that's been pretty popular is that skate park over just a few days ago. A guy by the name of John Shell, who we've been talking with Upward Tuition, has been asking about security and lighting, and said that there would be he was going to try to meet with you, kind of discuss some issues with that. Have you had the chance to meet with him, and is there any kind of movement on security and lighting when it comes to the popular place?
Yeah, I was actually, yes, I did meet with him late last week. I met with John and someone from the Tony Hawk Foundation to kind of pick his brain on some of the best practices that other skate parks. Look, we're not unique. I think any type of facility that's used at the level that this facility is being used at, there's going to always be growing pains. You're going to learn. I said that at the Day Use Marina. I mean, so far so good, but we expect we're going to learn some things. I've got a list of several items out of that meeting that I think would be good positive steps for us. You've heard me mention moving the hours to 10 o'clock. My goal is to not make any rapid fire changes to rules. I want to get them all bundled up and well understood and well communicated. So even if they're not functional now and it says that we're open until dusk and the lights are on, I understand the discrepancy there. But what we don't want to do is that with this revised version of some improvements, we want to make sure we've got our best foot forward, and not only are there new rules, but we have the ability to enforce those and make sure that those rules are respected. So John and I not only had that conversation, I was out at the grand opening on Saturday, which is an awesome event and a huge turnout. Thank you to Amy Miller and Tanya and Parks and Rec. We heard back, that whole group. I mean, over the course of the day, I'm sure thousands of people in total were there, in and out, and they left it in a cleaner condition than they got it. And so we haven't heard any complaints so far, and so that's a real positive step. And those are a lot of folks that had a big role in getting this thing open. So we'll continue to work on that, but we probably won't roll out anything substantive. We're going to have some conversations internally to make sure that when we do roll out these new rules with lighting, with security, and those are all things you touched on, or all things we've touched on so far, how we best secure it, how we handle lighting, how we handle hours. But we want to make sure we have all of that going at the same time, and make sure that we can enforce it once we have it in.
One more thing on the airport, Mayor. You
Yep.
said you're working on a Federal Department of Transportation grant. Is that what you said,
Well,
$76 million?
Well, I think the grand total is going to be, somewhere in that neighborhood. Obviously, we've started the process of selection for design, right now. So we won't really know the exact dollar amount for a little while, but we're expecting a $65-70 million lift. Now that isn't all from one source necessarily. We're looking to our own internally at the state level, of course, with FDOT. We've had several conversations with them, and so far in 6 months they've been nothing but amicable and supportive to help us on projects large and small. And I know those conversations will continue. And then, of course, at the FAA federal level, that that's part of me getting on this plane 2 hours early tomorrow is to be in Washington, D.C., so we can meet with FAA officials and folks that can help make decisions there. I think it's a misstep by this administration if we wait until design is done to start trying to figure out how to fund it. The time to start trying to fund it's now. And so when that design is complete, as close to that as possible is when we can start into construction. And so that's why we're going, and we'll continue to advocate for that at the state and federal level.
So the new terminal bid that you're going to open up, is this sort of a master plan for airport improvements? In other words, access roads, parking enhancements. You talk a lot about public facing.
Right.
That people want to know, they want to feel good about how the money is being spent.
Yeah, we have
this sort of an incremental approach to the expansion of traffic out there.
Yeah, well, again, a million extra people a year in a matter of 12 years. We have the good problem right now, and I say this about the city and the airport. We're a city in demand, and we're an airport in demand that continues to shatter records. We had the runway issues a couple months ago, and we still were beaten, the year before when we had, a runway down for a few days. So that's the good problem to have. It's a lot better than saying not enough people are flying here. So with that comes the need to help grow and expand. Yes, we do have a long-term, capital plan. So I certainly wouldn't want to attempt to speak to every item that Matt Coughlin, of course, and his team, Ken and everybody, they're always right on top of that. They could probably speak to that better than I could. But yeah, certainly we're looking at potential of adding 5 gates or so, and that's the conversation that we've been having, and that's because we have demand of people who want to come here. If we had 5 more gates tomorrow, we would have more direct flights. We'd have more options. It certainly always helps when you have options. It helps affect price, and so those are all good things. So we're trying to best capitalize on the demand that we have here in the city and see what happens. But we're taking a proactive approach, as our airport has. I remind people all the time, when we're talking school board stuff and they say, is the job political or not? I said, the job is political. My job's to be in Tallahassee and in Washington, D.C., fighting for us for tooth and nail for everything we can get to make Pensacola a great place to live. So that's what, we'll squeeze in between an agenda conference and a city council meeting, a little trip to the nation's capital, and we'll be back here Wednesday night and ready to go for council on Thursday. Anything else?
Sir.
Yeah.
There's an item on this afternoon's agenda review to allow food courts as permitted land use in some zoning district.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to brick and mortars? Have any of them reached out and concerned about this agenda, and what would you tell them?
Yeah, no, we haven't had anybody reach out. This is to have we're really a little bit behind the 8 ball compared to some of our neighboring communities that have these food truck court zoning, allowed uses. And what we hope to see is where you could have 2, 3, 4 food trucks, but it ensures that the developer of that project has a sound investment, that there be permanent restrooms, that there's some certain aesthetics and amenities that would have to be involved. So it's not just bringing a porta potty in and using a piece of vacant commercial property. So I think, again, this is not something that new, but again, big credit to our Sherry and planning and zoning team that have jumped on this and wanted to get something on the books for us. Just so you know, obviously this is the public hearing portion of that. The first reading won't be until July, so if approved and we have the support with council, you'll have the first 2 readings in July and August, so that would be ready to go come August. I know there's been some inquiries within the building. I haven't talked to anybody personally that is looking to use this usage, but again, given the fact that this is something that's happening all over the region, there has been some general interest and inquiries about if this is something that could be done in Pensacola. But I mentioned this with Plaza Ferdinand, and I mentioned it with the food trucks here, that food trucks is an incubator for job growth, for entrepreneurship, and a culinary scene of a community. Not everyone can afford $1 million restaurant, and you can spend $1 million in a kitchen just alone, just the stainless steel in the hoods and everything else. So if this gives us the ability to grow and develop people in the hospitality community, and it allows them to make that dream more approachable, we should always look into opportunities like that. So very excited to get that moving forward, and would be really excited to see one of those projects happen here pretty soon. Anything else? Got enough for today? All right, thanks.